Hey guys, welcome back. We'll continue with Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. And in this video, we are going to focus on working with strings. To follow along, you can find the book for free on automatetheboringstuff.com. Or if you prefer a physical copy, there's a link in the description down below. To not miss any new videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel and let's get right into it. We already worked with text in some of the previous videos, but in this video, we are going to go into much more detail about how we can best work with strings. So to create a string is very straightforward. We can create a string literal by using single quotes or double quotes, and this is going to generate a string. However, there are some things to note. For example, if we want to use a single quote within a string, we are going to run into an issue. So here we can see we are having a text that is Alice's cat, and we can see that the second single quote here ends that string. So here we are going to get an invalid syntax error because Python doesn't know how to handle those three single quotes. In such a case, we can simply use double quotes and simply use single quotes inside of that. We can also do the reverse and use single quotes on the outside of the string and then inside of that string use double quotes. But there's another approach we can take. We can use an escape character. So if we go back to the original string we had, this is Alice's cat. Rather than using double quotes, we could go ahead and just insert a backslash, and that's going to escape that single quote. So by doing this, we can simply use a string and it works properly. So the Python interpreter basically ignores whatever comes after that backslash. And by using those escape characters, we can put characters in a string that we otherwise would not be able to work with. Aside from escaping single and double quotes, we can, for example, escape tabs or, for example, new lines. Here's a quick overview of the different escape characters that are supported within Python. Let's have a look at a quick example. So here we have a print statement, and inside of that string we are using an escape character to insert a new line, and then a second new line, and then to escape a single quote. So as we run that, we can see that whenever there's a \n, a new line is inserted, and of course the \, single quote is going to display the single quote here. If we are using a backslash and we don't want to escape a character, then we can use a so-called raw string. And to use a raw string, we just put an R in front of that string. And that means that the regular escaping of characters will not take place. So if we compare those two outputs here, at first we have a regular print statement that escapes the \s character, but if we insert that R character, we can see that \, single quote is still displayed. And that can be really useful if we later on work with regular expressions where this becomes quite important. If we have a long block of text that should be displayed within a string, we can, rather than using those \n characters and inserting that into a single line string, we can use multi-line strings. And to create a multi-line string, we can either enter 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes, then insert our text, and then at the end of it, we can again insert 3 single or 3 double quotes, whatever we use to basically open that longer text. So here we have an example. We have a print statement here with some text. We have a couple of new lines in there, and then we basically start and finish this with 3 single quotes. So as we run that, we can see this entire block of text is being properly printed out. So for this, multi-line strings are very useful. Similarly to using multi-line strings, we can also use multi-line comments. So whenever we want to have a short description about what, for example, our program does or what some function does, we can use triple, single or double quotes, then insert our comment and again end this with 3 quotes. So you will find this quite often when we define a function and then we want to briefly describe what the function does. So for example, in this case, we have a function called spam that's just printing out hello. And here we are then explaining that this is a multi-line comment to help explain what the spam function actually does. So if we think back, for a single line comment, we use simply the hash sign, and for the multi-line comment, we use those 3 quotation marks to start and then again 3 quotation marks to end our comment. Strings use indexes and slices just the same way lists do. So if you take a look at a string like, for example, hello world here, Each character in that string has a specific index. Again, we are starting at index 0. And then each additional character has an index increased by 1. Let's have a look at how we can work with indexes in Python. So here we have a string spam. And again, we can use a bracket notation just as with lists to refer to the specific character at the specified index. Of course, we can also start at the back by passing an index of -1 to our string. And that in this case is going to give us back the exclamation mark. And similar to lists, we can also use slices. So here we are starting from index 0 and we go all the way up, but not including index 5. So this is going to give us back hello. And of course we can simplify that by simply dropping the 0 here and simply use :5. And we can of course also start at a certain index and then go all the way to the end by simply entering the starting index, a colon, and then closing the brackets. We can also check if a certain substring is part of a string. For example, here we are checking if hello is in the string hello world, which of course gives back true. And we can also check if a certain substring is not in an existing string. Of course, this is case sensitive, so therefore this here is going to give us back true, because the specific string hello in all uppercase is not part of the string, and because we're checking if it's not in that string, we get back true. If we are working with variables in strings, we can use string interpolation. So as an example, we have two variables here. One is a name set to the string L, and one is age set to 4000. And if we want to use those variables inside of a string, we can use an f string, meaning in front of our string we are going to add the character f. Then we have the string, and inside of the string we can use curly braces, and inside of it the variable name, and this is automatically going to render the specific values assigned to those variables, and that is displayed as we print out the string here. And those f strings are supported starting with Python 3.6. There's also an older notation that can be used for string interpolation, but this is the one that is used in the current versions. There are a couple of very useful string methods that we can use to do common operations. For example, the method upper, lower, is upper, and is lower. So let's start with the upper method. Here we have a string spam which is set to hello world, and if we call upper on that specific string, it will be changed to uppercase. Now it's important to mention that this does not directly change the value of the string itself. We need to reassign the return value here back to the original variable or to a different one to actually store that change. Now let's have a look at spam, and here we can see that our string has been changed to all uppercase. And we could go ahead and now call the lower method on spam, and this is going to change this to all lowercase, so that's basically the opposite of the upper method. We can also check for whether a string is in all uppercase or all lowercase letters by using the is lower or is upper method. Here we have a string that has mixed case, so we have some uppercase characters but also lowercase characters. So if we check if spam is lowercase, we get back false. But if we update our string to be all lowercase, we can now call is lower on it again, and this is going to give us back true. And if we do the same with is upper and we call that on an all uppercase string, we're of course also going to get back true. Aside from the is lower and is upper Boolean method, there are also a couple of additional methods that check for specific conditions of a string. Here is a list of some of them. So for example, is alpha is going to check if a string consists only of letters and isn't blank, and then it's going to return true. Then we have also other methods here like is decimal, for example, that returns true if the string consists only of numeric characters and is not blank. So as an example, we can take the string hello and call is alpha on it, and that's going to give us back true. Let's take a look at an example program that shows how we can use those methods in practice. So here we have two while loops. The first while loop asks us to enter our age. We get the input and then we check whether it's a decimal value. If that's the case, we're going to break. Otherwise, we keep on staying inside of that loop and ask the user to enter a valid number for the age. And then after that first while loop, we have a second while loop that asks us to select a new password so letters and numbers only. We ask for input, and here we are using the isLnum method to check if it's either a letter or a number that has been entered. So as we run our program, we can type in something that's not a decimal value, and we're gonna stay in the loop, or we can type in a valid input, and then we basically end that loop, and now we switch over to the second loop and we are asked to enter a password. And if we enter some invalid input, so for example some special characters, we are staying in that loop. But as soon as we enter a valid input, we're going to break out of the loop and finish this. So whenever we want to check for specific user input, those string methods are very useful. There are also some methods to check whether a certain string starts with a certain substring. So for example, when we take the string hello world, we can call starts with on that string and pass a value to it. For example, here the string hello, and we're gonna get back true because it's indeed the first word here of our string. And in a similar fashion, we also have the ends with method, and that checks whether our string actually ends with that specified string here. Now, in practice, quite often we're going to switch between lists and strings, and there are two methods that allow us to change a list into a string or to change a string into a list. And those are the join and the split methods. Let's start with the join method. The join method is called on a certain separator, for example a comma and a space here, and then we pass a list to it. For example, here we have a list of 3 different values, and that's going to join those 3 values together using the separator here. So as we run that, we can see all of those 3 entries that were part of that list have been joined together using a comma separator. And we could change that, so if just for an example we are switching this to 3 asterisk signs here, we basically see that that has been added in the middle between any of those entries that we're using to join that together. And of course we can also do the reverse, so we can take a string, for example this string here, my name is Simon, and then we can call the split method on it, and the split method is going to take the string we provide and turn it into a list. And by default, we are actually going to split the value here on the white space. So as we call split on that string, we see that we get back a list with all separated words. But we could go ahead and split this on a different value. So let's say, for example, we have a longer text here, longer string, and we want to split this based on each sentence. So here we are using the split method, and rather than not providing an argument, which would default to a white space, we are instead passing a dot character here to it. So as we run that, we can see we get back a list with 2 entries here. So we have the first sentence and then the second sentence. And another common use case would be the following. When we have a longer text, we could split it on the new line. So we can pass \n as the escape character to our split method. And this is going to create a list which is split on each new line. So basically each line here will then be a separate entry as an element of our list. And a related but somewhat different method is the partition method. And the partition method is going to take an input just as a split method, and it's going to split based on the string before that provided value, that value itself, and then whatever comes after that element. So if we call partition and we pass a W to this entry here, we're going to get back a list with 3 separate entries. First of all, whatever comes before the provided value, so whatever comes before the W here, so hello, comma, space, then the W, and then whatever comes after it. And a slightly better example would be the following. If we call partition and we pass an entire word to it, for example world, and we call that on hello world, we're going to get back whatever comes before world, world itself, and then the exclamation mark. We can also adjust the positioning of a string by using the rjust, ljust, and center methods. As an example, let's have a look at a string hello, and let's call rjust on us with an argument of 10. And this is going to right justify our string hello in a string of a total length of 10. So hello itself has 5 characters, and since we provided a total length of 10, there will be 5 additional characters basically entered, which are simply white spaces. So that's the default behavior, that we simply use white spaces. We can also provide a specific character that should be used to fill up that space. So if we provide the asterisk symbol here, for example, then we're going to see that we actually have that which fills up the remaining space. So here we have again a total length of 10 characters, and the first 5 which have not been filled by the hello string that's provided are being filled up by the asterisk that has been provided as the second argument to our rjust method. And of course there's a similar method called ljust, which is going to do the same as rjust, but just to the right side of that string. So here again we are using 10 characters in total, and whichever characters have not been taken up are being filled with white spaces here, but this time to the right side of our string. And then finally we have the center method, and that again is going to take an argument with the number of characters that should be filled, but the center method works different in that it's going to add that space to the left and right side equally of the string, and the string is going to be centered. And these methods are especially useful when we need to print tabular data that has correct spacing. So as an example, let's have a look at our program here. We have a function called printPicnic that takes 3 different arguments here, and then we have a number of different picnic items that we want to display, and we are using the center, ljust and rjust methods to display that properly. So as we run our program, we can see that the picnic items here are properly displayed and aligned. We're actually calling the function here twice, once with an argument of 12 and 5. So 12 is the left width and 5 is the right width. And as we can see on the left side here, we have 12 characters that take up the different positions, the rest of which is filled with those dots. And then we have 5 characters that fill up the right entry here. So independent of how long those entries are, this is properly aligned. And then if we need a little bit more space, we can call printPicnic again, and we pass 20 and 6 to it. And as we can see, the alignment slightly changes, but again, all the entries on the left and the right are still properly aligned and nicely displayed. So whenever it's important that we nicely display string content, then we should use the ljust, rjust and center methods. Now sometimes we may have a string with some white space in it, and we may want to remove that white space. For that we again have a number of different methods we can work with. So first up we have the strip method. The strip method is going to remove any white space from the left and right side of the string that we are calling this on. So in our case here we have hello world, but we have some white space to the left and right of it. So as we call strip on that, we can see the white space on the left and right has been removed. If we just want to remove the white space either to the left or to the right of it, we would either use lstrip, and that's going to remove the white space on the left side, but is going to leave the right space on the right side intact. Or we can use rstrip, and that's going to remove the white space on the right, but won't affect the white space to the left of the string. Now each character that we work with has a numeric value associated with it. Actually, under the hood, the computer stores information as bytes, so strings of binary numbers, which means we need to be able to convert text to numbers. And because of that, every text character has a corresponding numeric value, which is called a Unicode code point. And we can use the ord function to identify what the corresponding numeric value is. So if we pass capital A, for example, to the ord function, we get back 65. And if we pass capital B to it, that for example has the character 66. And thereby each character has a unique number associated with it. For example, if we take the exclamation point here, that is a number 33. And of course we can do the reverse as well. So if we take the chr function here and we pass a numeric value to it, we get the respective character back. So for example, capital A. And converting characters to their numeric equivalent can be quite useful when we, for example, need to order characters. That's, for example, also what happens underneath the sort function that we learned about before. When we are calling that, we basically work with those numeric values. So here we can check whether the numeric value of the character A is less than the numeric value of the character B, which is true because if you think back, the numeric value of A was 65 and of B was 66. Let's take a look at some helpful projects that we can do in order to facilitate copying and pasting specific content. And for that we are going to use the Pyperclip module that Python provides. That's a module that's not included in the standard Python library, and therefore we need to install it. To do that, we can simply click on the little gear icon on the bottom right side of the Mu code editor. And here we can select third-party packages and type in Pyperclip like this. Once we confirm, if we do that for the first time, we are going to install Pyperclip. Next, if we head over to our code editor here, we can go ahead and import Pyperclip. And let's first run a short test. So here we are calling copy on Pyperclip and pass in some string. And now the string that we passed in is actually saved. So if we go ahead and we press Ctrl V or Command V on Mac, actually the text will be pasted. And we can also go ahead and just type in Pyperclip paste, and that's going to paste our text that we copied here. Now that we know how to use Pyperclip to save data in the clipboard, we can write a little program that makes it easy for us to store some predefined messages, and then we can just type in a short keyword, for example agree or disagree, and we can associate that with some longer text, and we can for example use that to easily answer emails. So for that, let's have a look at our program. Here we have a dictionary with 3 different key value pairs. The key is going to be what we type in as a shorthand, for example agree, busy or upsell. And then the value is the text we actually use in conjunction with that. So for example, if we answer an email, we could use our program and just provide it with the command agree. And then this text here, yes I agree, that sounds fine to me, would be used. And of course, especially if we have much longer text, that can save us a lot of time. Now in order to use that, we need to import both the sys module and the Pyperclip module. And we have to make it clear for users that they need to provide 2 values when they actually run the command. We are using a so-called command line argument that needs to be issued when we run the program. So therefore, if when we actually run our program later on, less than 2 arguments are provided, we print out this error message and then quit our program. And then the second argument that's provided here, which we use by indexing into the command line argument here, is going to be the one key phrase that we save. So for example, agree, busy or upsell. And then we simply check if the key phrase that has been provided is one of the different keys in our dictionary up here. And if that's the case, then we are going to print a short message that the text has been copied. And otherwise we print out that there's no text available for that key phrase. Now we need to create a separate batch file to actually execute our program that works slightly different depending on which operating system you're using. Here on Mac, we create a new file that ends in .command. We add this line up here, the bash line up here. Then we just print out to enter an argument for mclip for the program. And then we are defining a variable here that is actually the one that we pass to the program. And of course we are saying that we are running Python here and we are referencing our specific Python file that we wrote before. Now that will be saved in our user directory, and once we've done that, we can go ahead and we can open Spotlight. And here we just type in the name of the command file that we just created and we press enter. And as we do that, we are asked to enter an argument for mclip. So if we think back, we can, for example, type in agree, which is then going to copy the text that is associated with the agree keyword. Now when I open my email client here, I can now just press Command V to paste in the text, and we can see that's exactly the text that we specified as a value to our key value pair. So that's a handy way how we can quickly select some text, copy it, and then paste it, for example, into an email that we want to write. Let's next have a look at a program that uses what we've learned so far to turn whatever we provide as an input into Pig Latin. So Pig Latin is a made-up language that alters English words, and specifically if a word begins with a vowel, the word yay is added to the end of it, and if a word begins with a consonant, that consonant is moved to the end of the word, followed by a. So let's have a look at how we can write this. We are first going to print out enter the English message to translate into Pig Latin, so the user should provide some input, which we store in the variable message. So here we would enter, for example, a sentence. Then we have a tuple with all the vowels, which we are going to use later. And then we have an empty list that is going to hold the different words that we create when we turn the input into Pyc-Latin. We are then calling the split method on the message that has been entered, so we get all the individual words. For each word, we then make sure that we remove any non-letter characters at the beginning and the end of the word. And then we remember whether the word was uppercase or in title case, meaning that the very first character was capitalized. We then turn the word into lowercase using the lower method to make the translation easier. And then we separate the consonants at the start of the word. And then we add the Pyc-Latin ending to the word. So we're adding either a or yay to it at the end. And then we turn the word back into uppercase or title case if the word was previously in uppercase or title case. And then we are appending that word to our Pyc-Latin list. And at the very end, we are then joining all the words together and print out the result. So let's run our program. So if we type in a sentence like this and we press enter, that's going to be turned into Pyc-Latin and the result is printed out here. Let's have a look at the practice questions. The first question is, what are escape characters? So escape characters are used within strings that should have specific meaning. So for example, if we have a sentence like this is Clara's cake and we use single quotes, then we need to make sure that we escape that single quote sign so our string doesn't end here but is properly displayed. And of course, aside from escaping a single quote, we can escape double quotes, for example. We can add a new line or a tab character. All of that is possible using escape characters. What do the \n and \t escape characters represent? So \n represents a new line and \t represents a tab in our string. How can we put a / character in a string? So if we actually want to display a / character without it being an escape character, we can do the following. We can turn our string into a raw string by adding the r character just in front of our string. And now if you have a look at that, then this / character here will be displayed. It will not be escaped. The string value Howl's moving castle is a valid string. Why isn't it a problem that the single quote character in the word Howl's isn't escaped? That's not a problem because we're using double quotes outside, so it's always possible to use double quotes and use single quotes inside. That's not a conflict. So that's an alternative we could use instead of escaping the single quote character here. If we don't want to put \n in our string, how can we write a string with new lines in it? So instead of using the \n escape character, we can use triple single or triple double quotes and simply add our string here with the respective new lines in it, and that is going to be displayed properly. So here we can see it automatically adds the \n characters in here. So this is basically an alternative that we have to adding that escape character. What do the following expressions evaluate to? Hello world, and then with index 1. Similar to lists, strings can also be indexed. So in this case, since strings are also 0 indexed, index 1 would be the second character, so it would refer to the E in hello world. If instead we are using a slice, we can start from the very beginning up to but not including the index 5. So in this case, this is going to give us back hello. And an alternative to write this would be to just leave off the 0 in front of the colon sign, and that's gonna give us back the very same result. We can of course also slice starting from a specific position all the way to the end. So in this case we are starting at index 3. So if we have a look, 0, 1, 2, 3, we would get back this specific string here. And of course we don't have to add the ending index here. If we add the colon, we are going to go all the way to the end. What do the following expressions evaluate to? Hello.upper. So we know the upper method here turns a string into all uppercase characters. If you have a look at that, we can see we just turned it into all uppercase characters. Here we are chaining together two separate methods. So first we are taking a string, we are turning into all uppercase, and then we are checking if it's in all uppercase. So in this case we're gonna get back true, like we can see here. And then finally we are chaining the upper method and the lower method. So first we are turning that string into all uppercase and then into all lowercase. So we're gonna get back hello in all lowercase. Let's have a look at that. And indeed we see hello in all lowercase. is returned. What do the following expressions evaluate to? So here we have a specific string and we are calling split on it with no argument. So if no argument is provided, we are always splitting on the white space. So therefore we're going to get back a list, and each element of that list is going to be denoted by whatever is in between that white space here. So remember comma is going to be the first element, then remember now lowercase comma is the second one, the third element, and so on and so forth. Let's verify that and let's have a look. And indeed all of these entries are separate elements in our list that is being created. And then what happens here? So we have a string, which is just a dash that we call join on. And then we pass, there can be only one, and we call split on it. So first of all, here on that string, we are calling split. So we're turning the elements here into a list, and we are splitting again on the white space. So we're going to get that list. And then we are joining that together. And specifically, we are noting that the dash character should be the separating element. So basically we are replacing the white spaces here with that dash symbol, and that's what we're going to get back. So let's copy this and let's actually have a look at that. And indeed we can see that we replaced the white spaces here with that dash character. What string method can we use to right justify, left justify, and center a string? So we learned about rjust, ljust, and center, and these are the three methods we can use. How can you trim white space characters from the beginning or the end of a string? So we learned about the strip method, which is going to remove white space from the beginning and end of a string, and we can also use lstrip to just remove the white space on the left side of a string, or rstrip to remove the white space on the right side of a string. We learned how to work with strings, how we can use important string methods, and we also had a look at some small programs that can be useful to copying some information to the clipboard, and then for example to use it when we send out an email. In the next video we are going to build on top of what we already learned about strings, and we're going to have a look at regular expressions. Subscribe to the channel to get notified whenever a new video is released, and see you guys in the next video.